How do we mobilize and support social innovators and youth of the world to achieve the global goals and create peace on earth by 2030?
Well, John and Summer, this summit is such a great call to dream keepers. And more than anything, today we find ourselves in a crisis of the imagination. So we're in a stage where what may have worked for the last century or perhaps millennia is no longer working for all of humanity. We cannot solve the pressing issues by using thinking from the past, but must acknowledge and support the solutions coming from social innovators and globally conscious youth. We can no longer waste our time or potential engaging in linear, biased forms of thinking or zero-sum games of blame. Our current systems are not offering solutions, and our media landscape reflects that by keeping us in a state of confusion and despondency. Instead, we need to engage in what I call convergence thinking, which is the deep realization that all things are interconnected and that even a small action has the ability to change large scale for the better or for the worse. So above all, we need to acknowledge and respect the web of life. Our biosphere is our protective life support system. And did you know that like every other breath that you take comes from microscopic organisms such as phytoplankton in the ocean, and that 40% of the world's oxygen is produced by rainforests? So if we can achieve world peace by 2030, but don't have oxygen to breathe because our oceans and forests have been decimated, we have not achieved peace. A new ecological civilization and enlightenment of peace go hand in hand and must be achieved together. They are not mutually exclusive. So the global goals are a great place to start. Microsoft Learning calls the goals the world's greatest lesson. And it's one of the best ways to get up to speed on our interlocking crisis, while keeping in mind that the goals also represent an estimated 12 trillion in solution-oriented market opportunities by 2030. So social innovators typically imagine and respond to such opportunities and absolutely need our support. Our hope for a peaceful and sustainable future depends on a deep system transformation that supports an ecological civilization, eco-governance, an earth economy, and culture of peace that creates a world that works for all. A world that allows for basic material needs, spiritual abundance, and that brings people and planet back into balance. We have a huge task ahead of us. It's miraculously doable. Studies show, however, not by doing business as usual. Imagination is absolutely required.
Wow. Yay. Wow.
Yeah.
So should I take it that you think it is possible to create peace on Earth by 2030?
Well, personally, I'm an idealist and an optimist. As a creative person, I think anything is possible, but you know, our world is brought into being by those who imagine and dream things into existence. So every event in reality is a result of a past action. So I'm seeing like dual paths of kind of consciousness or alternative futures, and one is kind of this dystopian path and the other is more positive. You know, a lot of times our entertainment industry paints a real dystopian picture of the future, so we get these kind of stories going on in our subconscious, and and our media landscape paints a dystopian picture. So I am trying to stay more on the positive pathway because it keeps me balanced. It's more healthy intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually. However, it's up to humanity to break out of its historic cycles of self-induced trauma, war, and destruction. It's up to humanity to imagine and manifest a golden era of peace. It's totally doable. So also imagine what would it look like if to offer healing to the nations. There's so many great dreams to be had. So no matter what, in service to future generations, we always need to keep that dream in our heart. We might just be here on the planet right now to envision and keep that very dream alive. So, you see these kind of things of the universe, how old the universe is. We're coming to understand, and you realize that humanity has only been here, for just a nanosecond of that. And, we're kind of a young civilization. We might not have the moral intelligence or Jedi peace training to kind of pull this off, but unless we really learn to bring things into a cooperative form of balance with each other and with nature.
Mm. Well, you really kind of nailed as well the second question, but I wonder if you have more to add to it. What do you think most stands in the way?
Well, for me personally, there's three things that come to mind. I know it's different for everybody, but what resonates with me is like political will, economic inequality, and the refugee crisis. And so Citizens United, as we know, allows corporations to be people and fund politicians, and more increasingly governments are becoming owned by corporations. So whose sole purpose is to make a profit and not benefit people and planet. So also inequality, economic inequality, we're now the richest 1% owns 82% of the world's wealth, and that seems to be increasing as a trend year by year. For example, it takes just 4 days for a CEO from a top Fortune brand, for example, to earn what a Bangladesh garment worker will earn in their entire lifetime. So the people that make our clothes and our phones and grow our food are being more and more exploited to ensure a steady stream of cheap goods, which also enrich corporations and billionaire investors, politicians. So this does not contribute to a just and sustainable world. These are big problems we need to work through. And also, I think, in terms of war and peace, these are like big ideas, but, it's like, if you look at human history, the tools used for supremacy and conquest have evolved. And, there's people like author, cognitive psychologist David Pinker offers data that we're less violent now in terms of specific type of weaponry. However, I argue that we have more destructive devices at our disposal now that are more subtle and pose greater risks and existential threats. So these new forms, subtle forms, are becoming more invisible. So studies also show that achieving peace has a greater short and long-term, economic and social benefit than waging war. However, the battle for scarce resources is usually at the root of most conflicts. So climate change will definitely have an impact on this. And in regards to refugees, I know that's kind of, this has been on people's radar. It's been in the news lately, but there's nearly 69 million people who have fled from war, violence, and persecution. I think the statistic is one person is forcibly displaced every 2 seconds. So, I think the most heartbreaking thing to me with those statistics are that half of the people are children. So this includes unaccompanied children as well as those who've been separated from their families. So, the immigration stories that are happening in the US, that's actually small scale compared to what's going on globally. And often, so many people are denied nationality and access to basic rights such as education, healthcare, and employment, freedom of movement. And then, that kind of got me to thinking, wow, this is really even adding to the orphan crisis, which is up to 150 million. And all of this further contributes to economic and political instability. But so those are the main things. But, I don't know about you, but I'm starting to tune out in terms of online conversations and really want the chance to talk to people in a constructive way that gets beyond debate and actually does things and creates action. So there's absolutely no substitute for relationship and community, and it's kind of where we find our truest sense of belonging. And so, how can we come together to really work through some of these, just talk about it and work through some of these solutions or problems.
So grateful you're a part of our community. And Yeah.
Oh, you guys, I love you guys.
Is there any way you can imagine that obstacle might be overcome, a problem that might be solved?
Well, I'm really sensitive to the news media and how the cultural story seems to be owned by special interests again. And, often we're led to believe that there's a consensus on certain policies or beliefs when really there's not. There's kind of a divide and conquer techniques or for brainwashing through repetitive neurolinguistics or, keeping the masses utterly hoodwinked, confused, and distracted. It's also more and more prevalent. So we need to be really extremely careful on how technology is used, especially, by those who might be abusing power. I think so many things are changing so fast, it's really hard to keep up on it all. And so we have to be more acutely aware than ever in terms of discerning and finding a new way forward. But, we the people are also waking up to reject the manufactured narrative and are acting to create a better world. So the old narratives are designed to exploit our vulnerabilities and insecurities, but they also isolate us from each other. So we can heal our divides, absolutely, and find that common ground by coming together face to face and doing good. Together we are creating our own more powerful story.
Fabulous, fabulous. So what do you want most to contribute to creating peace on Earth?
Well, by 2030, a lot of things kind of keep coming up as 2030 as an indicator year to achieve or not achieve many things. So, the population is expected to reach 8.5 billion, and the Global Footprint Network predicts that by 2030, the entire Earth will be using 2 entire Earths to sustain our present rate of overconsumption. So I would definitely say mind shift in terms of seeing ourselves as planetary citizens and stewards of the planet. I think we really have to see ourselves in that way. And despite all the dark clouds and storms of disruption, I'm seeing glorious waves of universal light and peace breaking through. And thank you to people like you, and the work that you're doing. So, and orchestrating this, it's so beautiful. A crescendo is arising. In musical terms, a crescendo is a gradual increase in loudness and intensity. It's a way for composers to indicate that a passage of music should gradually increase in loudness over time. So this summit helps to orchestrate these crescendos, giving voice to and uniting the hearts of those who call out for and long for peace and a just and sustainable world. So in the musical score, the passages of exquisite unity, consciousness, and harmony will be enjoyed by those who desire and seek it. So that music will sustain the weak and the downtrodden. And so for those of you who feel burnout in doing this most important work, don't be weary in well-doing. As peacemaker, for as the Beatitudes say, blessed are the peacemakers, and this beautiful music of peace is available for all of us.
Beautifully said.
I love what you just, the crescendo, that is very profound. And
coupled with that, what do you want Films for the Planet to contribute?
Yes. Well, just a little bit of, back up on that, I think. I founded Compathos as an arts and media nonprofit about 9 years ago, and we've created various types of award-winning media, films, music, interactive student media, travel expeditions, long-form journalism, music videos, film festivals, and a globally recognized media hubs. In other words, we've been having a lot of fun. But anyway, we've had the opportunity to work with a lot of creative community of talented students, Hollywood professionals, entrepreneurs, and social impact artists on movement building campaigns around the world. So we've been focusing mainly on transformation through system storytelling and impact. And we are creating like peace and sustainable impact by initiating like wisdom circles and media incubators and a media for Coalition for Peace and Compassion. So last year we launched Films for the Planet, the best in environmental, social impact, and transformational films on demand. And so we've been creating online hosted film conversations for networked organizations and are forging strong alliances with movement leaders from diverse sectors. So we're also creating like a catalog of films and VR films right now as we speak with the sustainable development goals for educators wishing to teach the SDGs and communities wishing to implement them. So so a lot of these films have really great community discussion guidelines and educational curriculums. So our logo and our organizational symbol contains the butterfly. And I'm so excited to talk about this today because the butterfly metaphor has been so beautifully portrayed by one of the summit speakers, Lori Huddle, and she's really kind of pioneered a lot of this metaphor. It's so beautiful and inspiring, and she talks about the imaginal cells which hold the DNA for the metamorphosis and what the butterfly will become. So the butterfly metaphor signifies that a new breed of dreamers are awakening, and they are not observers, but they are creators. They are not involved, they get involved in the transformational process. Their personal transformation plays out as social transformation. They are called imaginal cells because they are literally imagining a completely new way of being and a new way of being in the world. So the cocoon attacks the cells, and as the cocoon kind of considers the new DNA to be an enemy, but the imaginal cells hold the pattern image and emerge as a new butterfly. They are awakening to new possibility. So Buckminster Fuller said, "You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, you must build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete." So, so clustering in community, the imaginal cells devise a plan. This kind of sounds like a movie.
I know, I want to watch this.
To create something entirely new from the wreckage. So there are imaginal cells in every community waiting to cluster with other imaginal cells who hold the stories and vision for a new planetary system. And you guys have been facilitating that kind of revolution, you know, and gathering imaginal cells that want to make a difference. So if you are envisioning a more just and sustainable world and taking action to achieve your dreams, you are an imaginal cell. So as part of this global transformation, a conscious cinema movement is also happening around the world. So this is kind of this epiphany that I just had the other day. It's so cool. I'm so happy like bringing this forward. I realized, wow, it's like the filmmakers' goal is to hand the story over to the imaginal cells.
Wow.
The imaginal,
Yeah.
So the imaginal cells amplify, attract, and take the story to new heights, accelerating the impact story. Bam. Yeah. So artists provide the juice of inspiration. They provide the juice for the imaginal cells. And since the imaginal cells do not consist of observers, remember, or the audience, they use the story as a form of action learning. So this is like super exciting because, you know, time and again, I've seen these films like start these movements and create massive amounts of impact, policy change, wildlife conservation, community regeneration, philanthropy, and social innovation. And so I've got all these great stories. And one of the examples is a community was threatened by fracking. In fact, fracking was kind of threatening a whole half of a continent. And they watched a film called Gasland, and they actually started a movement and stood up against the frackers and stopped having their water table poisoned for a whole half of a continent. So these stories, I see them a lot, how people, oh, I watched a film, it changed my life, and now I'm doing this. So I know that films are extremely transformational. And another thing is that imaginal cells are already at work in communities, regenerating local economies, local food systems, education, and much more. So with that in mind, we're launching like a Imaginal Cells community engagement program. And I want you to be a part of this. I want everybody to be a part of this. And I'm totally committed to getting the toolkits which give people the tools to engage and cluster in their communities around film, story, conversation, and informed action. So our communities hold the DNA for the new story butterfly and a citizens media movement. So the old system or cocoon is swiftly falling away. So if you are an individual, city, or movement leader and you resonate with this, or envision yourself working in this capacity, this is just an asset and a tool that we want to give you. So just contact me, look me up on Films for the Planet, or sign up for filmsfortheplanet.com on our newsletter, because we're kind of rolling this out in stages. So I'm totally excited.
Incredible.
Now, of course,
so
we want to be a part
will
of that.
make sure that that's included in the bonus that is connected to this conversation with you, as for people to become members and have access to that Imaginal Cell community kit. Yeah. Sounds incredible.
Now, Cynthia, you are magnificent. You really, the complexity and the spirit and the drive to make a difference in the world is so moving. And the last question we want to ask, if there's any other key insights that you have that you want to share on how we can together create peace on earth. I mean, you've said so much that's so meaningful already, but I didn't want to lose the chance for you to share anything else.
And I would just add to that question too, just in the depth of who you are and the Films for the Planet. I wonder how that kit, if you can share some examples of what exists in that kit, like so people that would build relationship with you, how that would work, how that would help.
Yeah, sure. Well, right now we have what we call the Art of Hosting Film, and you can get that on our website at the Member Circle. So right now, Films for the Planet is more or less a membership site. So when you can access the films, but more, you can access the toolkits and some of the programs and some of the online programs that we offer. And we offer a lot of like free streaming films. We've had up to like 2,000 free streams so far that people have taken advantage of. It's been a really interesting journey. And so the toolkit that we have so far, it kind of gives you a play-by-play way to set up a film screening in your community and engage in really in-depth conversation, what that looks like. And we're kind of adding that. We want to go a little deeper with it and really give people deeper tool kits and sets, and possibly offer actually one-on-one training with people who are doing that successfully, not only with films, but just conducting really great transformational community conversations in their communities. So there's a lot to be said about it, and I'm really excited. So please stay tuned, and if it sounds like something you'd like to become involved with, we're just really looking for people to help out and organizational partnerships. So in terms of, let's see, key insights, and I think how we can all work together to achieve all this in 2030. It's more, we need to tell stories of peace and compassion. I've just always been really passionate about that. And so we need to accept that peace might not be possible on a global scale during our lifetime. So the transition that we're in right now might involve a lot of collapse and rebuilding. So I think it's best to hold deep wisdom to start preparing internally and externally for that. Not only looking for the solutions in a way of rebuilding, but we need to really hold out a compassionate story during times of difficulty. So, and also we need to ask, what can we do from our small corner of the world that will ripple out and have that butterfly effect all over the world? I have my butterfly wings on today. So can one have peace when things are falling apart around them? I think we need to answer that, or ask that of ourselves. And the more people that are focusing on solutions and healing our divides will really help that. And there's no shortage of solutions. It's just being part of the solution, and together we can seek them out while employing, foresight, because a lot of solutions aren't really solutions at all. But mainly, just be happy in the moment. I know I've had 2 near-death experiences, and it just gives you a real greater realization of how precious life is. And so I think we need to honor and celebrate the interconnection of all things, and really see yourself as not only a planetary citizen, but a universal citizen. If things are so delicately and intricately and magnificently connected in terms of the web of life on this beautiful planet, we need to realize, our interconnectedness, and as that extrapolates itself throughout the entire universe. So anyway, with that, the other word would be just stay strong, have trust, and keep imagining and keep on being you, because the grand metamorphosis is underway and the old ways are dying and transitioning. So something much more beautiful and unified is slowly taking its place.
Wow, beautiful. Wow. May it be so.